The clock in my living room had just struck 10 when the phone rang, splitting the silence like shattered glass. At that hour, calls meant one of two things: bad news or family. I reached for the receiver with a hand that trembled more from age than fear, though both lived in me now. Dad! The voice on the other end belonged to Wayne, my son, though it carried none of the steady confidence I once envied. Sounded thin, frayed, like rope stretched too long. "Wayne? What's wrong?" For a moment, only his breathing answered. Quick, uneven, the kind of breathing I remembered from his childhood when he'd fallen from his bike and broken his arm. But Wayne was 42 now, a father himself, and that frightened me more than silence. I need help," he said at last. His voice cracked like ice splitting on a lake. "Real help. Urgent." The words drained the warmth from my chest. Wayne had never been one for admitting weakness. Pride was stitched into his skin. For him to call me this late, to confess desperation, it meant something catastrophic had happened. "Tell me," I said, though a part of me already braced for the answer. Through the line came faint sounds. Pacing footsteps, the scrape of a chair, the restless fidgeting of a man cornered by his own mistakes. When he spoke again, his tone was lower, almost a whisper. "Dad, I lost 50,000. The number hung between us like a loaded gun. I gripped the phone tighter, knuckles whitening. 50,000. More than my pension for the year. More than I had ever held in my hands at once. How?" He hesitated, then let the word fall with disgust. "Crypto." I closed my eyes, forehead pressed against the cool wall beside the phone. Margaret, my late wife, used to warn Wayne about shortcuts. She believed money earned too quickly disappeared even faster. She had been right. Wayne's voice tumbled on. Fast. Frantic. It was supposed to be safe, an opportunity. 30% return, Dad. I thought I was being smart, securing the kids' future. I used the emergency fund, their college money, even borrowed against the house. Every word was a stone added to my chest. "The house. A loan," he admitted, nearly choking on it. 25,000. And now they're calling, demanding payment. If I can't come up with the full amount by January, they'll take everything. On the other end of the line, I heard him sink into a chair, heard the raw sound of a man burying his face in his hands. "Joanna doesn't know," he whispered. "Not yet." The air in my living room thickened. Across the street, Christmas lights blinked in cheerful ignorance, mocking the storm that had just arrived inside me. "Dad," Wayne said again, softer this time, almost childlike, "if I lose the house, my kids lose their home. Help me, please." The plea cracked something in me. A father's instinct said yes. But another voice, a quieter, colder one, already whispered, "This is only the beginning." For a long moment I didn't answer. Wayne's words pressed against me like a tide, pulling at every fragile wall I had built to hold back grief since Margaret's passing. His voice, pleading, desperate, was the same voice that once begged me to let him stay up past bedtime, or to teach him how to drive. Except this time, what he wanted was heavier than anything my heart had ever been asked to carry. "Dad," he repeated, louder now. "Say something." I'm trying to understand," I said, though the truth was I understood too well. I had lived long enough to know the scent of desperation. It clung to him through the phone line. Wayne filled the silence with his explanation, every word a brick in the wall he was building around me. "It was supposed to be different, Dad. You don't get it, the pressure. Joanna talks about college funds, retirement. The kids look up to me. I wanted to give them more than I had. I thought I finally found a way. And instead," I said softly, "you found ruin." He flinched at the word. I could hear it in the way his breath caught. But instead of shame, anger bled through. "I'm not ruined. Not yet. That's why I'm calling you. You can help me stop this before it gets worse." The shift unsettled me. It was no longer a son seeking comfort. It was a debtor cornering his last lifeline. I looked around my living room, at Margaret's framed photographs smiling from the mantelpiece. Her presence filled the house even now, her laugh in the walls, her touch in the garden she tended. Wayne's voice cut through the memory. You live in a house worth 300 grand, Dad. Alone. 4 bedrooms for one man. Heating bills, roof repairs, taxes. It's too much for you. You've said it yourself. My stomach clenched. I could hear where he was steering the conversation, and dread rose like bile in my throat. You want me to sell the house, I said. It makes sense, he insisted, pouncing on the opening. You downsize to something manageable. Condo. A senior community with neighbors your own age. Activities. Less responsibility. Everyone wins. No, I said firmly. The word surprised even me with its strength. Dad, listen. No, Wayne. I stood, though he couldn't see me, as if rising would anchor the refusal. This house is not just brick and wood. It's your mother. It's every memory we made. I won't sell it like a car I'm tired of driving. Silence followed, but not empty silence. Heavy, charged, dangerous. When Wayne spoke again, his tone was colder. So you'd rather see your grandchildren homeless than let go of a building? The words hit like a slap. My knees buckled, and I steadied myself against Margaret's favorite chair. He knew where to strike. He knew I loved those children as if they were my own heartbeat. But beneath the pain, something else stirred. Something I hadn't felt in years. Fear. Not of losing the house, but of losing my son to a darkness I hadn't seen until now. And for the first time, I wondered if this conversation was less about desperation and more about calculation. That night, I didn't sleep. Wayne's words replayed in my head on a merciless loop. You'd rather see your grandchildren homeless than let go of a building. I walked the halls of my house like a restless ghost, touching the walls Margaret had painted, the quilt she had stitched, the garden tools she had left behind. Everywhere I looked, her fingerprints remained. Selling this place would not only strip me of my shelter, it would erase her. Yet Wayne's accusation gnawed at me. Was I clinging to wood and plaster while my grandchildren's lives teetered on the edge of collapse? The thought carved into me like a blade. At dawn, I found myself in the kitchen, staring into my coffee as if it might offer answers. Instead, it reflected the lined face of a man caught between memory and blood. The phone rang. My heart seized before I even answered. Dad. Wayne's tone was different this time, soft, almost contrite. I shouldn't have said those things. I was out of line. I'm sorry. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to hear the voice of the boy who once ran into my arms after his first baseball game, cheeks flushed with pride. But there was something in the pause between his words, too measured, too careful. I've been thinking, he went on. Christmas is coming. Joanna's cooking. The kids keep asking about you. They made gifts, little things from school. They'd be crushed if you weren't there. The apology, the sudden invitation, it felt like a shift. Yet my gut twisted. You want me at Christmas dinner, I said flatly. I want us to be a family again. No talk about money. Just dinner. Just Christmas. Please, Dad. Through the line came the faint laughter of children. My chest tightened. Lula's giggle, Tommy's chatter. Pure, unspoiled sounds. Could I deny them their grandfather out of suspicion? And yet, suspicion burned hotter. The timing was too neat, the plea too polished. Wayne, I asked carefully, does Joanna know the truth? About the debt? A pause. Then, she knows some of it. Enough. Not the whole truth. That omission was louder than any confession. Still, against my better judgment, I heard myself say, all right, I'll come. The relief in his voice was instant, almost rehearsed. 4 o'clock. You won't regret this, Dad. It'll mean everything to the kids. After I hung up, the kitchen seemed colder. Margaret's photograph on the wall seemed to watch me with unblinking eyes, as if asking, are you sure? I wanted to answer her, to say I was doing this for love, for family. But beneath that longing pulsed a darker truth. For the first time in my life, I was afraid of my own son. And still, I was walking straight into his house. Snow clung to the corners of Wayne Street like forgotten scraps of paper. I parked at the curb, engine idling longer than necessary, watching the wreath on his front door sway in the wind. My chest felt tight, Not from the cold, but from the heaviness of what waited inside. When I finally stepped out, arms full of carefully wrapped gifts, the sound of children's laughter drifted through the frosted glass. For a moment, hope pierced me. Maybe this would be different. Maybe my doubts had been nothing but the paranoia of an old man who had lost too much already. Wayne opened the door before I could knock. His smile was wide, practiced, but his hug was firm, almost convincing. "Dad." Perfect timing. "The kids have been bouncing off the walls waiting for you." Then came Lula, launching herself into my arms, her small body warm against mine. "Grandpa, you came." Tommy followed, grinning, clutching a model airplane box I had given him the year before. "We saved a seat for you." Their joy wrapped around me like a blanket, loosening the knots inside me. If only for a moment. Inside, the house glittered with Christmas charm. A towering tree stood in the corner, lights blinking like stars, stockings lined the mantel, and soft carols floated through the air. Joanna emerged from the kitchen, apron dusted with flour, her smile polite but tight. "Roger, it's good to see you." I handed her the apple pie I had baked from Margaret's recipe. Thought this might belong on the table. Her eyes softened. She'd be proud. But her hands trembled slightly as she set the pie down. Dinner unfolded with the rhythm of tradition. The children tore into their gifts with squeals of delight. Lula held up her new chemistry set like treasure, while Tommy carefully unfolded instructions for the model plane, already plotting its assembly. Their happiness steadied me. Wayne, meanwhile, played the role of perfect host, carving the prime rib, snapping photos, pouring wine into crystal glasses. "A toast," he declared, lifting his glass high. "To family, to forgiveness, to new beginnings." Everyone echoed, "To family." I drank, though something in Joanna's glance made my hand hesitate. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Conversation flowed easily, too easily. Tommy recited a story from school. Lula showed me the clay mug she had made. Joanna asked about my garden. But beneath it all, I felt a hum, a current of something rehearsed, too polished. Halfway through the meal, a sudden cramp twisted in my stomach. I pressed a hand to my side, blaming the rich food. Yet the dizziness that followed wasn't normal. The room blurred, candle flames bending into golden streaks. "Dad, are you all right?" Wayne asked, his voice layered with concern so perfect it chilled me. I forced a smile. "Just need some water." He gestured toward the kitchen. "Take your time." I stood, legs unsteady, every nerve in my body whispering danger. And as I staggered toward the kitchen door, the laughter of my grandchildren echoed behind me. Innocent, trusting, while suspicion bloomed like poison in my chest. The kitchen's light felt harsher than I remembered. White, sterile, exposing every crack in the tile. My hand shook as I reached for the faucet, but before the water could touch my lips, my gaze landed on the table. A vial, small, clear, unmarked, nestled beside Wayne's car keys as if it had always belonged there. I froze. My stomach tightened again, sharper this time, twisting like wire. My throat went dry, though I just swallowed wine. And in that instant, understanding didn't arrive with drama or thunder. It slid in quiet and cold, like a blade beneath the ribs. He had poisoned me. The thought was unbearable, yet undeniable. My own son, the boy I once carried on my shoulders, who cried at the loss of a goldfish, who whispered, "You're my hero," before sleep. That boy no longer existed. In his place stood a man who saw me only as an obstacle with a deed and a pension. I fumbled for my phone. My fingers, numb and heavy, barely managed to tap the numbers. 1-9. Another one. My vision doubled, blurred, cleared again. Behind me, the door clicked shut. "Need some help." Wayne's voice. Calm. Too calm. I spun, almost falling, the phone slipping from my hands and clattering across the counter. He stood in the doorway, not smiling now. His face was stripped of performance, bare and calculating. "You did this," I rasped. He didn't deny it. He only stepped closer, folding his arms, studying me like a specimen. "You wouldn't listen. You forced my hand." "Wayne," My legs gave out, and I slid to the floor, cold tile pressing against my back. "I'm your father, and I'm your son," he said evenly. "Which means everything you own, everything you cling to, it comes to me eventually. I'm only moving up the timeline. You'd kill me? For money?" He crouched, eye level now. His eyes weren't cruel. They were empty. "Not for money. For survival. For my children. Don't you see? This way they keep their house, their college funds, their lives." I searched his face for hesitation, for some flicker of the boy I loved. There was none. Only certainty, cold and immovable. My breaths came shallow, my chest tightening. But amid the panic, one thought cut through. The children. They must not inherit this darkness. I forced my trembling hand across the counter, closing around the fallen phone. My thumb found the button, pressed it. A faint click answered. The line was open. Wayne's eyes narrowed. "What are you doing?" I whispered, barely audible, "911. For the first time, fear cracked his mask. He lunged, snatching at the device, but the dispatcher's voice already spilled from the speaker. "911, what's your emergency?" Wayne's face shifted. Panic, then fury, then something monstrous. "You've destroyed us," he hissed. "No," I whispered, clutching the phone like a lifeline. "You destroyed yourself." Sirens wailed in the distance, faint but growing louder. The sound split the night, a promise of salvation. And as Wayne's expression twisted into something I could no longer recognize, I realized the truth more bitter than poison itself. My son was gone. The kitchen blurred into motion. Paramedics' gloves snapping, officers' radios crackling, flashlights cutting through garland and ornaments. I sat slumped against the cabinet while strangers swarmed the house my son had tried to turn into a tomb. Through the doorway, I glimpsed Lula and Tommy, their small faces wet with confusion. Joanna held them close, whispering words I couldn't hear, her eyes swollen, fixed on Wayne as officers pinned his wrists in steel. My son did not fight. He only looked at me once, a glance empty of apology, before lowering his head and letting them drag him out into the December night. The sirens carried him away. Silence returned, but it was no longer the silence of home. It was a hollow silence, echoing with everything lost. Weeks later, I stood again in my own kitchen, Margaret's apple pie cooling on the counter. The trial had ended swiftly. Wayne's conviction for attempted murder was stamped in the court record with a gavel's finality. 15 years, no parole. A life measured now in barred windows and numbered uniforms. And me? I measured life by the small things that endured. Lula's clay mug, crooked and lopsided, sitting proudly on my shelf. Tommy's model plane, half-assembled on my workbench, waiting for him to visit again. They came on weekends with Joanna. At first shy, then slowly unburdened, they filled the house with noise Margaret would have adored. Laughter in the halls, chalk drawings on the patio, whispers before bed. The home Wayne had wanted to strip from me had become theirs in a purer way, not through inheritance but through love freely given. Still, the nights were long. Sometimes, alone in Margaret's chair, I stared at the walls Wayne had called a burden. I thought of his voice, cold as stone. "I'm only moving up the timeline. That voice will never leave me. It is my scar." Yet scars, I've learned, mean survival. A spring arrived. Margaret's roses, once skeletal in the frost, pushed through the soil with stubborn grace. I tended them with hands less steady than hers, but careful, deliberate. Lula knelt beside me, her small fingers brushing dirt over new roots. "Grandma would like this, wouldn't she, Grandpa?" she asked. "Yes," I whispered, watching petals unfurl. "She'd say they're stronger than they look." As the garden bloomed, so did something in me. Not forgiveness, perhaps, but a kind of acceptance. Wayne was gone, at least the version I once believed in. But the children remained, their laughter a bridge between past and future. And the house, my house, still stood, weathered, imperfect, but strong. On quiet nights, I sometimes step onto the porch and let the cold air remind me I am still alive. The stars burn above, indifferent to our failures, eternal in their patience. Somewhere beyond the horizon, my son counts his years in concrete and steel. But here, in this home built of love and memory, life continues. Roses bloom, children grow, and the silence, though heavy, is no longer hollow. It is the sound of what remains.